Do you dare to listen after midnight? Some voices echo long after the world is asleep. The hour between night and dawn is a strange, elastic thing. It can stretch itself so thin you feel every tick of the clock as a needle pressed into your skin. Or collapse so suddenly you find yourself falling through hours in the blink of an eye. But there is one time, one moment, that always returns to me with relentless precision. 3:12. It is a time carved out of ordinary darkness, cold as old bone, silent as a mouthful of dirt. That is the moment, every single night, that I hear it, the whisper of my own name, curling through the shadows like a finger trailing ice along my spine. It started quietly, the way all nightmares do. I would wake, breathless and sweating. The air so cold my exhale fogged the room, as if I'd opened a window to some deeper winter. I tried to believe it was the neighbor's radio, or the pipes shifting, or some unremarkable noise you only notice in the dead hush of 3 Ma. But my name is not common, and the voice was not any voice I'd ever known. It was slow, deliberate, the vowels stretching and falling apart, until Mr.QV sounded less like a name and more like a wound being probed, over and over. At first, I dismissed it as stress. I had been living alone in this cramped apartment for only a few weeks, a stack of cardboard boxes still leaning against the wall, the stale scent of the previous tenant's cigarettes clinging to the paint. The hallway outside always felt 1 degree colder than the rest of the building, and sometimes the lights would flicker for no reason at all. Still, I told myself that I was safe here, that the shadows in the corner were just tricks of the eye, that the tapping I sometimes heard behind the walls was nothing but the restless bones of an old building settling around me. But the whispers did not stop. Every night, as the clock ticked over to 3:12, I would jolt awake, sometimes heart pounding, sometimes with the taste of old coins in my mouth, always with the sense that someone had been watching me just before I opened my eyes. Sometimes I heard the voice as a gentle breath against my ear, so close I could feel the warmth of it. Other times it seemed to come from the ceiling, or from under the bed, or even from inside the closet, hissing my name in a tone as intimate as a lover and as cold as the grave. The city outside my window felt impossibly far away. Distant sirens and horns swallowed by the thick velvet dark. The apartment was a box inside a box, floating in a silence so deep that every sound became monstrous. The whisper began to change, growing bolder, more playful, sometimes repeating my name 3 times, sometimes drawing it out in a long, gurgling sigh that made my stomach twist. The air in the room would thicken, pressing down on my chest until every breath became a struggle. I started to dread going to bed. I left the lamp on, the TV flickering static images, music playing quietly on my phone, anything to push back the silence, anything to keep the darkness at bay. But nothing helped. The light bulbs would dim and buzz until they died. The music would distort into a warped, underwater echo. And always, at 3:12, the room would freeze, the shadows would twist, and the whisper would return. Mr. Q, are you listening? Soon I was counting every minute, every second. The digital clock beside my bed became a curse. I stared at it until my eyes ached. watching the red numbers crawl toward the hour, each one heavier than the last. Sometimes I would try to stay awake, gripping the sheets so tightly my knuckles ached. But no matter how hard I tried, sleep would pull me under like black water, and I would wake at the exact same time, heart skittering, the whisper licking at my ear. The voice grew stranger. Some nights it would repeat my name over and over, the cadence changing each time, as if trying to learn the shape of it, or to remind me of something I'd forgotten. Other nights, it would say nothing at all, just breathe a long, slow exhale that smelled of earth and old stone, as if something ancient was pressed close to my skin. There were times I thought I saw movement in the dark, a ripple along the wall, a flicker in the corner, a pale suggestion of a face peering from behind the closet door. The air would crackle with cold, and I'd feel a weight settle onto the end of my bed, a dip in the mattress that could not be explained by dreams or nightmares. I tried to talk to it once, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" I whispered into the void. The answer came as laughter dry, hollow, echoing inside my skull until I pressed my hands to my ears and wept. That laughter followed me into my days. I heard it in the hum of the fridge, the drip of water from the tap, the flutter of old receipts in my wallet. The world outside seemed to dim, the colors leaching from everything, until the only real thing left was the cold, and the darkness, and the voice that knew my name. Sleep became impossible. I would pace the apartment until my legs trembled, stand for hours at the window staring into the swirling darkness below, searching for some sign that I was not alone in my terror, but the city gave nothing back. My reflection became a stranger, eyes sunken, skin drawn tight, lips cracked and colorless. Sometimes, just before the hour, I would see a flicker of movement behind me in the glass, a shape ducking out of sight, faster than I could turn. On the 14th night, I found muddy footprints on the floor, leading from the front door to the foot of my bed. I lived alone. The lock had not been touched. No windows broken. Yet the prints were there, wet, unmistakable. The toes splayed as if someone had walked through a swamp and stepped barefoot onto my floor. The next morning, the prints were gone. I checked the security footage from the building hallway, but the tape was static from 3:05 to 3:20. A white noise that seemed to pulse in time with my own heartbeat. The voice began to invade my dreams. I would find myself standing in a hallway much longer than my apartment could contain, doors on either side warped and bulging, leaking black water. I would walk, or sometimes crawl, toward a distant light, the floor cold and sticky beneath my hands. From behind every door, my name would rise a chorus of whispers, some shrill, some guttural, all pulling me forward. Sometimes, I would reach the end and find a mirror, and in it, a version of myself with empty eyes, mouth open in a scream I could not hear. The more I tried to fight, the worse it became. My phone would ring at 3:12 a.m., displaying a string of zeros. If I answered, there would be silence, then a single breath. Then my name, spoken so softly it was almost a thought instead of a sound. Text messages would appear. Just my name. again and again, from numbers that disappeared when I tried to call them back. Sometimes, the whisper came from my laptop speakers, from the static of the radio, from the hiss of the shower. It followed me, seeped into me, until I could not tell where the voice ended and I began. Friends stopped visiting. They said I looked haunted, that my eyes were never focused, that I jumped at shadows. I tried to explain, but how do you tell someone that the darkness in your room is alive? That every night something waits for you? Something that wears your name like a mask and slips inside the walls when the sun comes up. They thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. One night, desperate, I left the apartment and wandered the streets until dawn. When I returned, I found a note slipped under my door, written in handwriting I recognized as my own. You can run, but I will always find you at 3. 12. The next night, I didn't bother fighting sleep. I let it come. Let the coldness creep into my bones. I woke, as always, at the exact minute. This time, the voice did not whisper. It spoke clearly, directly into my ear. Mr. Q, open your eyes. I did. The darkness was thicker than ever, but in it I saw movement, a ripple at the edge of sight. The air shuddering as if something vast was breathing just behind the wall. The whisper was everywhere. Not a single voice, but dozens, all repeating my name in perfect unison. The room warped, stretched, became a tunnel lined with faces, some familiar, some impossibly old, mouths moving, eyes blind. They called to me, beckoned, and I felt myself rising from the bed, pulled forward by invisible hands. I stumbled through the dark, hands groping for the walls, but the apartment was gone, replaced by endless corridors that twisted and folded in on themselves. The whispers chased me, echoing through the blackness, growing louder and sharper, each one digging beneath my skin until I could feel them crawling inside me. The cold became unbearable, my breath slowing, my heart laboring. The darkness pressed against my eyes, and I understood I was not alone. I had never been alone. Something had followed me home. Something ancient and hollow. Something that wanted my name because it no longer had its own. I woke on the floor, gasping, my hands raw and bloody, the sheets torn and twisted around my ankles. The clock read 3. 12. Again. And again. The numbers refused to change. I was trapped in that moment. The air heavy with the taste of ash and rot. The whisper circling, waiting for me to surrender. Now, every night, I wake at 3. 12. Whether I sleep or not, the voice no longer asks permission. It inhabits me, filling my mind with memories that are not mine, dreams of places I have never been. Sometimes, I see through the eyes of others, strangers in empty rooms, children shivering in the dark, old men weeping in basements thick with mold. All of them hear the whisper. All of them know my name. I have tried to escape moving apartments, sleeping in hotels, staying with friends, but the whisper always finds me. The hour follows me like a shadow, the world bending around it. all roads leading back to that cold, silent room and the voice that waits inside. I no longer bother to run. The only way out is through. Tonight, as I write this, the clock blinks 3. 11. The air is thick, humming with anticipation. I can feel the cold breath on my neck, the familiar weight pressing on my chest. I know what comes next. I know the voice will call my name, and I will answer. Maybe tonight I will follow it. Maybe tonight I will finally see what lies beyond the darkness, where the whispers are born. If you ever wake at 3, Chapter 12, A. To the sound of your own name, do not listen. Do not answer. Not all voices that call to you from the dark wish you well. If you hear your name whispered in the dark, do not answer. Not all voices want to be heard.